Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we are going to delve back into the player's guide to the adventures of Middle-earth with the classes.
If you want to jump down the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy. So the classes in Middle-earth, I think, are a pretty cool addition. And they definitely have the unique rules of Middle-earth built into them, because there's things that talk about the sanctuary and the things that are built into the structured play of how Middle-earth works.
Yeah, at the same time, I feel like you could insert any of these into your regular D&D game, and like either ignore the sanctuary section. Either you can add the corruption into your D&D game or get rid of it from here, and it would be fine. They introduce a couple new mechanics as well. Right. One is they give you different ways to use inspiration. You can use it to power certain abilities. There's a ton of class features, not a ton, but a handful of class features that really rely on GM kind of intrusions and player agency.
Okay. I must have missed that part because I'm not recalling. What I took from this was the creators really just re-envisioned a bunch of the core classes of Dungeons and Dragons, but stripped them out and made whole new classes. So like there isn't anything that I would say would be legitimately brand new, because you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different classes, and it's really cleric, barbarian, rogue, ranger, bard, and fighter.
Yes.
And
except for there's some weird areas where it's like where the bard really creeps into like other classes, like 3 of them.
Well, I think there's crossover in several of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I like what is presented here. I'd be very interested to actually check this out. And like, I finished reading this section today, but I really wanted to take some time and sit down and kind of compare a side-by-side with the player's handbook and say, all right, if somebody liked the quote-unquote archetype of some of these other ones, how well would that fit?
Could you slip it right into that class?
Yes. Like, could I take a warrior archetype under fighter? So that's something that I want to do. I want to do that side by side and see.
Yeah, I have not done that either. I kind of just went through these, checked them out. So first of all, we have like the very first page, which like in the player's handbook, it kind of gives you like an overview of each class, and there's 6 of them. We have the scholar, learned expert and master of healing arts. We have a slayer, savage, doughty warrior. Slayers are more associated with barbaric and martial cultures. They're also basically the barbarian.
We have treasure hunter or burglar to less polite people. That's your rogue. Your wanderer is an experienced traveler. The wanderer is the most at home on the road or in the lonely wilderness.
Then you
can see that's clearly the ranger.
Yeah, then you have the warden, brave in spirit. The warden helps others rise up against the enemy. And finally, we have the warrior,
a stalwart and disciplined fighter associated with the rich and civilized cultures. And that's clearly, warden is your bard, warrior is, well, you're a fighter. It says it's right here, a disciplined fighter.
I believe it's the warden and the scholar both have that feature I was talking about, where essentially, like, you make a check, and if you succeed, you're like, well, actually, what really happened a couple weeks ago, I bribed the guard, and he put a key under a loose brick, and things like that.
Essentially, what you have the ability to do is you get to edit a scene. If you could have had the time to prepare something in advance,
conceivably do it, yeah,
then at the moment that you need it to happen, that's when you deduct your gold, you say what happened, and it legitimately does.
And there's a couple class features. That's the one that's like stands out the most in my mind. But there's a couple class features that have something similar to that, and it's awesome, and it could be problematic at the same time, because one, it relies on having a GM that is okay with you mucking with his game. And I've played with enough GMs who would not allow that, and their panties would get in a bunch for sure. But like in our group, it would be fine. Like I think we're pretty kosher with player agency and kind of rolling with the punches.
Now, the very interesting thing about Lord of the Rings, for those of you who read the books and you watch the movies, you don't see legit spell casting going on. You know, Gandalf is a wizard, but he's not throwing fireballs and lightning bolts all over the place.
He could literally be a scholar from this.
That's
guy,
what he would absolutely be. He would fall into the scholar role.
I'm not convinced yet. I'm not convinced that isn't like another race or or NPC thing that he could possibly be instead. But
of these options, that's where
he would fall.
But it's a completely spell-less system. And I thought it was interesting of like, how do they compensate? So like with your scholar and your warden, I don't know how well you would be able to port over those archetypes because they don't...
You'd have to port the character class.
Yes. But with the other ones that are more martial, your warrior, your wanderer, your slayer, and your treasure hunter, I think those ones might be a little bit easier. But like... You do have, as your cleric, you do have the capacity to heal, but you basically are, you build this pool of healing dice. I actually think they were called. Yeah, they're healing die. Yeah, healing dice that you use to heal either in or outside of combat. And it's a way that you can still have that cleric. You still have someone who tends to wounds, but... you don't have someone casting magic. So.
Yeah, and when they have more time, they're better at it. Right. If you actually take the path that is all about healing, then you're better at it. Each class has a cool section in the beginning. Play a scholar if you want to. Uncover ancient secrets and use their power against the enemy. Master the arts of healing and restore your injured friends to full health. Be admitted into the council of the wise and know much that is hidden.
With scholar, you either have the path of the healer or the path of wisdom, which that's what allows you to get those different archetypes. So your Slayer, he's your barbarian, and play a Slayer if you wish to toss wolves and goblins from your path like straw and feathers. Take revenge upon the enemy for all the many injustices inflicted by your people. Fight alone or in the front line of a company of warriors.
The two paths for the Slayer is the Rider, which is cool because you get the mounted barbarian and you have the foe hammer.
The foe hammer.
And you know what else is really cool? Like if you could combine them, like the berserk. We don't have a berserker barbarian, but basically the ranger class. I'm going to bring it up because it's kind of relevant to the barbarian in 5e. But one of their abilities is actually to exhaust their enemies, and also they shrug off exhaustion like it was nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, unfortunately, you have to take like 13 levels of it, but then you could go frenzied berserker all day long. We also have the treasure hunter. Play a treasure hunter if you want to. Sneak into caverns, fortresses, and noisome tombs where danger lurks. I don't know, that's kind of weird. Noisome tombs. Isn't the term like quiet as a tomb? Spy on the movements and plans of the enemy. Steal back stolen treasure from the orcs and goblins.
So your treasure hunter archetypes are agent and burglar. So I think that's pretty common. Your agent is your person that's actually working within the actual guidelines of the system, and your burglar, it's your typical thief.
Yeah, the thing that's kind of cool about that is the agent has basically replaced the assassin, right? Yeah. Without the assassin type stuff. Uh-huh. So if you wanted to play that in your regular D&D game, and you wanted kind of like some of the stuff that from the assassin without being assassin-like, that would be a good place to go.
Right. So your wanderer, or again your ranger, says if you play a wanderer, if you would like to explore the wide world of Middle Earth, hunt down and destroy the servants of the shadow, no matter where they hide, or guide a company of adventurers through the perils of the wilds.
And then for them we have our hunter of beasts and also shadow killer. So basically one is your typical woodsman hunter, and the other one their purpose, their goal is to seek out the enemy, the dark powers of Mordor, and bring them down.
The next we have Warden.
We do.
Play a Warden if you want to defend the free peoples against the shadow, inspire your allies to yet greater deeds, or bring hope when all hope is lost.
With the Warden, which I actually thought this was going to be the Ranger class.
Yeah.
But it turns out it's basically the Bard class.
Yes.
And, the Warden expressions are the Counselor,
the Counselor and the Herald.
There's one more, the Bounder as well. So essentially, the Counselor is kind of self-explanatory. That you're basically a wise one to give counsel. The Herald is actually someone that they're the more martial of the bards.
This is your combat bard.
Yeah, this is your Bard of Valor, essentially, except for it's a little different. Their abilities are a little bit different. And then the Bounder is kind of like the Bard of the people. They're the ones that they'd probably rather be hanging out in the local tavern and going to small villages.
Well, they fall more into like a cross between the two because they have abilities that are all built on defense.
Yes.
And it's like, but wait a second. They're about defending without the martial training of the Herald. Yes. How do they pull it off?
Very carefully.
I'm a little leery about seeing how that one plays out.
Well, they have a suite of abilities that kind of help that. So the warriors, play a warrior if you want to defend the free folk with force of arms, wear heavy armor, and fight with discipline and courage. Command followers or master weapons to their fullest extent.
The warrior is really cool. I love some of the stuff that they actually do here. So your archetypes, you have knight, weapon master, and it was really the weapon master that I feel is so diverse. Because number one, they have something that I've never seen before, and that's essentially they improve upon your fighting styles that you pick.
Yes.
So you get to climb that ladder, which I think is really cool. And some of them, while it focuses you a little bit, like it's not overly powerful. So
no.
you don't have to worry about the power creep. But then
for instance, dueling, where dueling is a +2 to damage, as long as you don't have a weapon in your offhand. Well, it improves that by going. Well, you can take that as a plus to the attack instead, or I believe a combination thereof. So if you want to do +1 attack, +1 damage, so it makes that ability a little bit more diverse, but it doesn't necessarily make it better.
Right, because it's not changing the modifier, it's just allowing you to play with it.
I feel like of them all, the protection one, that is the one that really makes it better.
Because you get to use your shield
as a shield bash.
Yes. Without sacrificing your armor class.
Yes.
And anytime you get to use more of your action options, I think that it makes it better overall, in my opinion.
I feel like a lot of the classes do that too. They definitely try and have abilities for the different actions: bonus action, reaction,
yes,
your standard action.
Although there is some things in here that they don't reference action at all. I think it was under the Warden, the guard one, where you literally, if somebody...
Bounder.
If somebody is within 30 feet of you and they are brought to under 20% of their hit points, and within 30 feet of you, you can just put yourself in between and take the attack. I thought that was pretty interesting.
They can take the hit for him.
But under the Weapon Master, you have Masteries, which gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options, and one of those options gets better as you continue to level.
The weapon?
Yeah, the birthright option.
Yes.
So it's like, well, you'd want to take that one first so that you're getting the maximum, build out of it. But it seems like this is the one that I would be concerned about because...
What happens if it breaks, it gets taken away?
Well, there is that option, but I was looking more at the lines of, you're taking an ability that builds... And you have features that build upon that. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you don't choose that option, it's clearly the superior choice.
Right.
But if you don't choose that one, has that been factored in? Well, everyone's going to choose this one.
I don't think you can factor that in because there's no way knowing what
Well,
everybody's going to do.
Well, it's true. It's true. But I like it. It makes me wonder. Like, all right, is this overpowered or is this factored in? And the other ones are like, well, they'll if they don't take it, then they're just not playing the spec. And
Nothing seems like completely overpowering to me. Everything seemed like it would work in a game, and I don't think anything would be disruptive. The only thing, like I said, I already mentioned the only part where I saw it could be iffy, and that's if your GM doesn't want to work with you.
right.
Or I guess in this one, is it the lore master?
The lore master.
Yeah, is our GM. I guess we've mentioned it before, but your starting equipment for your character class or your player hero from your class, it basically goes by the race you chose or your culture that you chose, and each one has the listing of your wealth level as per your culture, and that will determine what kind of gear you get to start with.
The only thing is looking at is someone wanting to start off more powerful with better virtues because it comes from this particular culture, or do I want to start off with better gear? Until we get all the way through, it's going to be hard to really see how that.
Well, it
really
seems like your culture traits are kind of balanced against your wealth as well, and that's like part of it. But I think that's a weakness. It's more than a bonus, because as you go on with the game, I mean, we talked about it in the last one.
By the time you get to third level, your wealth is generally not really something
it's
to
not
factor
relevant.
in, whereas your feats are something that's there for the whole game.
Yes, and other traits.
Yeah.
All in all, yes, I would absolutely allow any of these right into my game with very little changing. The only balancing issues that I would actually do are for things that aren't actually in regular 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Go, all right, you're not going to get this. You need to be compensated. Oh, and the other thing too is there are several abilities that are powered by inspiration. So if your GM doesn't give out inspiration, it's you're going to kind of be boned.
I forget what exactly class it is. I think it might be.
There's several.
The bard with the.
Or somebody actually gets it. That's their ability. Once a day, they just get it.
It's like, all right.
Or is it once a session?
Once a long rest.
Yeah, because there's some abilities that are per session, right? They call it the adventuring phase, so you have to be careful. And they're the agency ones too. Most of those are like, you can do this once per adventuring phase, and some of them are even more like quests. Those could be a little tricky figuring out, and hopefully, if you're playing this game and you have those abilities, your GM's willing to work with you and let them be as cool as they should be.
So, what do you guys think? Have you dived into the Middle Earth Player's Guide? Are you playing Lord of the Rings? Share your stories down below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time, stay nerdy.